You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron. Now here's your host, Ethan Hristodoulou.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Greeks Gridiron. I am Ethan Hristodoulou, and it's that time again. New week, new slate of predictions, and today we start with the Thursday night football matchup between the Denver Broncos and the Los Angeles Chargers, a clash within the AFC West. We'll break down the game. We'll make a prediction on who's going to win. I'll even give you guys an idea as to what I'm thinking the score is going to be, so I invite you all to comment down below. Let me hear from you. Who's going home a winner? Who's going home a loser, and why? Who do you like in this contest? Now, that being said, diving into the matchup, Denver going into Los Angeles to take on the Chargers. Like I said, AFC West clash here with honestly, a lot of playoff implications on the line here because both of these teams could really use this win, and the Chargers more so than Denver in this current moment here. If they lose, they get dangerously close to potentially slipping their way out of the playoffs. Now, the big thing that I'm looking at here in this matchup that we've been seeing from the Chargers over the last, I would say, month or so at this point now, since losing J.K. Dobbins, is just the overall balance of this offense. Since they've lost Dobbins, they have not crossed the 100-yard rushing mark. The offense has basically had to rely on Justin Herbert, who is a fantastic passer, don't get me wrong, but a banged up and drop happy wide receiver core that has just not been able to catch the football or consistently make plays with him, coupled with the fact that you've been dealing with injuries at the tight end position as well. It's been a bit of a mess on the offense minus J.K. Dobbins, and right now, when going into this game here, Denver is currently allowing the 5th lowest rushing yards per game in the NFL. On top of that, they've allowed only 7 rushing touchdowns. They have the 2nd best run stuff rate and 6th lowest rushing yards over expected allowed, according to NFL's Next Gen Stats. If the Chargers can't find a balance to their offense from this point forward here, it's going to be tough to grind out wins, because if teams know what you're doing and they know that you can't run the football, especially when you look at just how good Denver is against the pass, this could be a bit of a problem for them. So keep an eye on the running back room, just kind of see who's going to be getting the heavy workload here. I honestly, I would love to see some sort of explosion from somebody, whether it's like Gus Edwards, Kamani Vidal, or somebody else out of that backfield, but they have just not been able to get things going on the ground, where like maybe they've approached the 100-yard rushing mark in a couple of games, and then there's a couple other games where you're hanging around like 50, 60 yards total of rushing offense. It's just not conducive of winning football games. Second thing I'm looking at here, and this one specifically for Denver, is going to be Bo Nix and just how he fares in this contest overall. The reason I bring that up is because, yes, Bo Nix has had a phenomenal season to this point here as a rookie. I think better than a lot of people were anticipating, especially how he looked coming out of the gates of the first couple of weeks of the season after a really strong preseason. Bo Nix threw 3 interceptions in last week's win over Indianapolis. He also threw 2 interceptions the week prior against Cleveland as well. Those 5 interceptions are the most in a 2-game span since weeks 1 and 2, when he threw 4 against Seattle and Pittsburgh. And I would say that it's fair to argue just a slight bit of regression from him in these last couple of games here. And it's not like, and maybe Cleveland's defense is a little bit better than maybe I'm giving them credit for at this current, because I wouldn't say the defense is really the problem in Cleveland right now. But as far as the Colts defense goes, neither one of those two units are super stellar at this current point in the season right now. And you're going up against a Chargers defense that has been extremely tough to go against, whether it's against the run or against the pass. The Chargers do it all pretty well defensively. They are extremely well coached. They got a lot of really good players on that team altogether, and their ability to defend the pass, in my opinion, is basically the anchor of this defense. Ranked 10th in passing yards per game allowed and ranked 7th in passing yards per play allowed. Los Angeles has been a shutdown unit through the air. You couple that with the fact that they are tied for the 4th most interceptions in the NFL right now with 14 picks on the year. If Bo Nix can't play clean, play smart football in here, this could be one of those like lower scoring defensive affairs where you look at Denver's defense, you see the way that they've been playing here. Nick Bonito is literally playing at a defensive player of the year type of level, and maybe isn't going to quite get the notoriety he deserves just because newer guy on the scene. Yeah, he kind of started to come on last year. He's exploded this year, and maybe you're not quite hearing it yet from Denver yet as they come back up on the rise this season, but that's a guy who is taking over games on his own. alone, paired with Jonathan Cooper on the other side, and their pass rush altogether, in my opinion, and even statistically speaking, the best pass rush in the NFL. These two teams could be locking down the opposing offenses here, so I'm very, very curious to see how both of these teams fare. Now, another just couple of notable things to keep an eye on here, speaking of those pass rushes. While I was talking about Denver, 49 sacks on the year so far. They lead the league right now. Los Angeles is no slouch themselves. They're not too far behind them at 40. Yes, 9 less, but not too far. On top of that, both of these teams are ranked top 10 in total pressures. Denver ranking number 1. Now, this is one of those things where, again, this goes back to my initial point of how does Bo Nix fare? How can this team in LA run the football effectively? Because if they can't, both of these defenses with those pass rushes could create massive headaches for their opposing offenses. On top of that, the Broncos, this is a big test for them because they have not had a lot of success going up against teams that are above 500. Like those playoff teams that they've played so far this year, they haven't really beat a lot of them. In fact, they've only beaten one team over the record of 500 at this current point in the season right now. They're 1-5 against those 500 teams. 8-0 against the sub-500 teams. They've been really good against the bad teams or the lesser opponents that they faced here, which is good because even if you're a fringe playoff team or just a playoff team as a whole that's maybe not going to win their division, but looking somewhere between seeds 5 to 7, you want to at least be able to beat all the teams you should be beating, and Denver is doing that. But this is a big test here, a game that you must win if you want to really solidify yourself as a legit threat in the coming weeks as we head into January and into the playoff season. So definitely something to keep in mind as you look at this contest. And then the last thing, as far as injuries are concerned, not a ton for either one of these teams here, but the big thing, I guess, and I don't even really know if you want to call it a big thing, but just a couple of notables, Atito Ogbonna, and then of course Elijah Molden on the defensive side for LA. A couple of notable names, I would say, for the defense that are either questionable and or doubtful for this contest here. So there's that to keep an eye on. Hayden Hurst is set to potentially return in this game as well, it sounds like. So good to see that coming back for the offense of LA. But overall, we're looking at a pretty good contest here. Both teams in a pretty good spot at this current point in the season. Health-wise, not anything super concerning to keep in mind here. But as for the actual matchup, the team that is going to come out on top and get the win here, if you're looking at their records right now, Denver sitting at 9-5, the Chargers sitting at 8-6. Both of these teams could really use this win. I would argue that there is a slight edge to the Chargers here, as them sitting at 8-6. Another loss putting them at 8-7 would just make things a little bit too close for comfort, I would say, and where they currently stand as far as the playoff picture looks in the AFC, with a team like the Bengals doing everything they can to try to sneak their way in, but they need a lot to go their way. So both of these teams definitely need it. I would say the Chargers do a bit more. The fact that the game is in LA, I do think benefits the Chargers a bit as well. But to be honest, with a clean football field, the way this game is set up here, and Chargers' home field advantage is not necessarily, the most advantageous thing, I would say, at this current point in the NFL. But I will say that not having to travel is always great, especially this late in the season. So Denver having to come from Colorado to there, definitely also something worth keeping in mind. However, I think I'm going to be going with the Denver Broncos for this game. There is something that is telling me that this is Denver's time. They're really putting it together. The defense has been playing at a championship caliber level at all points of this season. And while the offense has been a little bit up and down in certain spots, that defense has just consistently been one of the best units in the NFL. And I'm having a really hard time picking against Denver as of late. Whereas when I look at the Chargers, the biggest thing for me, I simply can't get over the fact that they can't run the football anymore. It's incredible the drop-off that this offense has seen, especially in the run game, but even just overall as well. The balance of this offense is completely gone. This is a team that at one point in the season was at literally the most balanced offense in the NFL. I forget how many weeks ago it was, but I won't forget the stat line. It was 266 passes to 267 runs. They were as 50-50 of a football team as you could have imagined, and now minus J.K. Dobbins, that's out the window. They cannot open things up on the ground, and it's making them one-dimensional. So I'm going to go underdogs. I like Denver in this one here, but I do think it's going to be close. I don't think either one of these teams runs away with the football game at all. I think it's Denver 23-20, and if the Chargers wind up winning the contest, I wouldn't be shocked if it's, Chargers, same score line, something along those lines. Really tight contest here because both defenses are good. We've seen some up and down things from both the offenses, but I just feel like Denver is in a little bit of a better spot right now and primed to take a big victory here in LA. So let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Who's coming out victorious? Who's winning on Thursday Night Football? What do you like about the matchup? Would love to hear from you all. But as always, if you made it to the end, I greatly appreciate it. Remainder of the predictions will be coming out tomorrow sometime mid-afternoon, so keep your eyes peeled for that and make sure you're subscribed. But I'll see you all next time. Have a good one.